me why you like horror movies.
My name is Anakin, and I like horror movies because the amount of people that get murdered.
To metal one week, then goth, or like glam rock, but I'm still into horror.
A culture surrounding it that is very enjoyable and, oddly positive.
Bloody, it's kind of sexy in this weird way.
Watching a good horror movie will give you like a brain orgasm.
I just like watching people die pretty much.
A horror fan? Hell yeah. I'm a monster kid. Aren't you a monster kid?
From the outside looking in, they think they're all a bunch of, slobbering, crazed idiots. Some of them are.
A lot of improv was encouraged, and that produced things like, E-X-I-T, exit, which was basically a tip of the hat to Sesame Street.
Pretend, like for instance in reality, that 99.9% of the human population never heard of me. Or thinks I'm a dead French guy.
Haig is the only man on the planet that can say that he worked with Lon Chaney Jr. and Rob Zombie. And I am.
My favourite type of horror film is usually psychological, actually. The horror that's implied rather than shown.
I'd like to do a trash with a Linda Hamilton Terminator twist. Something like that, I think would be like my dream role.
I think I'm a good screamer.
Horror stuff, but you also like, rainbows.
Kicked out of here if I answer that honestly. I'm really not a horror fan. I never have been.
They don't only remember anything they did, they remember shit I didn't even remember doing.
Horror films are my life, because I make them.
What am I looking at? I felt like I'd been shown much more than I was supposed to see.
1, 2, Freddy's coming for you. 3, 4, better lock the door.
The scariest horror movie I've ever seen would have to be Twilight.
5, 6, better get your crucifix. 7, 8, stay up late.
I always wanted to watch them just to be scared, to see how scared I could really get and stay that way.
9, 10, never sleep again. Oh, my little kitty girl.
We have gone way beyond the Three Little Pigs and way beyond some of the other fairy tales.
You can kind of escape your daily life and scare yourself a little bit. I think if you're always on edge, a little bit of fear is good in life.
People see it and they're like, oh, do you like to cook? I'm like, no, I like axe-murdering maniacs.
I heart monster movies.
All right, and go ahead.
So my first horror movie was Nightmare on Elm Street, and that scared the crap out of me because Freddy Krueger is really scary and he's really gross looking. Johnny Depp's eaten by the bed, and I just have like vivid memories from childhood of having these horrible nightmares of getting eaten by the bed and blood squirting all over my room.
It's kind of cool how like when you fall asleep and then Freddy kind of comes for you.
I'm really picky when it comes to my horror. Like, it has to be good or I will not sit through it.
Anything that's scary and creepy, possibly sexy in there somewhere.
Things like It, I don't like clowns. And The Clown were like awful. And I would not watch a horror movie for years after that.
Going out in the rain, seeing like storm drains, and just thinking of clowns.
My mother came into the shower when I was a kid and would throw balloons up and start making the sounds that the clowns did on the movie It. It scared the hell out of me. Yeah.
Come in all walks of life. I have teachers and soccer moms and lawyers.
So I'm pretty much just a mild fan, I guess, when it comes to horror movies. I like to go and watch them. It doesn't really influence my life.
Not a uber fan, like I have many friends who are.
Basically grew up watching horror, I think like a lot of kids do.
Well, I wouldn't consider myself to be a fan of horror movies. I'm a definite horror fan. I went to the drive-ins.
I hate horror movies.
People actually say they look like my house looks like a Halloween house because I have skulls hanging in cages outside of all year round.
I've always been into the macabre, anything that's really spooky and scary and stuff like that.
I like horror films because a real horror film, not a slasher film.
Oddly enough, even though I love horror films, I don't handle gore that well.
The American stuff, which is more just straight blood and guts, which, I mean, I can appreciate too.
Gotta have blood. Lots of blood.
If as long as it's horror, I'm a pretty happy person. Yes. Yes.
I'm from Southern California. Drove all the way up here just to see everyone and like hang out and see all the panels. Very excited about the panels.
I'm at ZombieCon because I have been a lifelong zombie fan.
The thing about conventions is there's always like tattoos buzzing and fluorescent lights and a lot of people you need to talk to, and you gotta stay charming, and you probably sleep all of 3 hours a night. So they're definitely draining, but they're super fun, and you know, you get to hang out with people you don't normally get to see.
I'm here because I'm a horror freak. I adore movies, adore the genre, video games, comic books, you name it, I love it.
There's a lot of fun to be had. You can meet a lot of people who've created these works of art, be it films or books or paintings or, you know, whatever. You meet a lot of the people behind that.
I just like the vendors, and I love like I can find things. It's like, oh, I freak out. I'm like, I nerdgasm.
Yeah, you get to be with other people who like to be weird and put blood on their face and dress like characters too.
Things about doing the Twisted Geeks podcast is we get to go to conventions like ZombieCon, like Crypticon, and other ones that I love like Starfest, where we get to meet not only just the fans of all this and see the great fan outpouring, but we also get a great opportunity to meet the minds behind all the stuff that we've enjoyed, some of the writers, directors, and especially the actors, and we get to spend time interviewing and talking with them, and it's been a fantastic time.
You know, I look up, Malcolm McDowell's ahead of me getting coffee, Chuck Palahniuk and Max Brooks are trading notes for their talk that night. And George Romero is just kicking it in the lobby. And I just look around, I'm like, I am surrounded. There's so much genius in this room. And it was very hard for me to contain myself and not just run up to everyone and be like, oh my God, I love you, I'm such a fan.
If this seems a little awkward, people at home, it's because the people that are interviewing me right now have no idea what I've done, so I'm feeling like I'm sitting here like, what do? I have to like feed them into this stuff.
Going to shows like this and you see the way people dress and the way that they get into it and they express themselves in something that they like. I've always, as an outsider, someone who's not really into the genre myself, I can still appreciate the fact that they are enjoying it and enjoying themselves.
These people had seen everything, a lot of them, and they would probably, I don't mean to be mean, but they're probably more equipped to interview me than this stuff. You don't even know. It's on his teeth.
Telling you because they are the best. Horror film fans are absolutely the best there is on the planet, okay? They buy all the tickets, they buy the DVDs, the posters, the t-shirts, the pictures, the whatever the hell kind of crap we come up with, okay? They're there supporting us all the way down the line, and without them, I got nothing.
They'd say like, what's your favorite line in this? And my mind's going, oh God, I don't know, looks like, well, what's your favorite line? And then they would tell it to me, and it was a coincidence, that was my favorite line too. And I write it down there, there you go.
I don't talk to the celebrities, only because I'm always scared it's gonna change the way I see the movies or anything I'm interested in them in. I like to see them in like the everyday life. You know, you see like we saw like people from Boondock Saints just walking around casually, like last night, and Sid Haig just walking around. And like that alone is awesome to me, just to see them in real life when they're not in a film, so I usually don't talk to them now.
I have mixed feelings about autographs. I really love to get, my picture taken with someone and get, my book or my poster or my movie signed. But I'm also very poor and don't want to pay $20 down the line.
I don't do this for the money. I have my school. I'm, independent. I come here because of hanging out with Mosley or Sid Haig, How hard is it to sit here and have people throw money at you all day, If you complain about that, you're a moron.
Finished signing an autograph here, and there was a guy who'd come to the table over here who said, "Would you sign my dick?" I said, "No, I wouldn't, not even if you washed it recently. Besides which, I'm not sure I could fit my signature on it."
Lovecraft has kind of enjoyed this resurgence in popularity. People are taking an appreciation of sort of the literature aspect of it. In fact, in Portland, we have a bar, the whole theme of which is Lovecraft. The guy's got it painted on the ceiling and painted on the floor and posters and all kinds of crazy stuff on the wall.
Hello, I'm John Horrid. I'm the owner of the Lovecraft Bar in Portland, Oregon. The Lovecraft Bar is not a gothic bar. It's a horror theme bar, embracing all horror culture, be it literature, music, fashion, or art. That way, it's a broader spectrum for everyone who loves anything dark or spooky that goes bump in the night. It's sort of if like Tim Burton designed a lounge, It's goofy horror. It's not so serious, but it's definitely, we have children's coffins on the walls, there's bones everywhere and chains, but it's also a kind of fun feeling. H.P. Lovecraft is probably one of the biggest names in horror, but he's never gotten credit for it. It's always Poe and Stephen King and Anne Rice and whatnot. But Lovecraft's impact on the world of horror is immense. They've inspired Metallica, Iron Maiden, mentioned in Ghostbusters, Hellboy. He's everywhere. He's dark, he's gloomy, he's a total freak, and he's awesome. I didn't want to be specifically Lovecraft themed because there's so much more to offer. And I'm a huge fan of black and white horror movies, honestly. So it's just basically I wanted to capture that sort of feel. With the broader spectrum of horror, it attracts all sorts. I love that we've attracted authors, for example. Like young, punky, splatter horror authors are hanging out here. Apparently the road manager to Metallica has been hanging out here. One of my favorite nights ever, we first opened. You got your sulking metalheads and your gloomy doom goths over here. There's a girl dressed all in white. She's bouncing around. I'm like, fuck, here we go. And there goes the end of the bar, But I'm not a dick. I wanted to be polite. She came up, she's like, "You're the owner." I was like, "Yeah, I'm the owner." She's like, "I love your bar." I'm like, "Thank you, She's like, "I tell all my friends about it." I'm like, "Cool." She's like, "I'm a librarian." I'm like, "Please tell all your freaky librarian friends." Because librarians are freaks, bottom line. We're slowly attracting across the country a buzz with little to no advertising. I don't Twitter. I fucking hate that shit. Word of mouth has been strong enough that horror fans are coming to us. And ultimately my goal is to get like Bruce Campbell or Mike Mignola in here just to hang out. And they drink for free, of course. So I was in a huge sort of renovated furniture, recycled material place. And I gave the question, I was like, "What do you have that's uncomfortable for you guys here?" And they mentioned their 1890s children's coffins. And I was like, "Oh, I gotta see those." And they're mahogany, and they came in the original packaging. I fell in love with them the second I saw them. And the price was right. I can't say I've spent more on sushi, but I've come close. And they had a matching pair. And even the guys who delivered it didn't want to touch the boxes. They were so superstitious. The Lovecraft Bar is an art project always in motion. Whenever I'm out, antique stores, whatever, I always ask whoever's working where, I'm like, "What's the most messed up thing you have here? What makes you uncomfortable?" And then I usually buy it. Animal traps, old surgical instruments, coffin handles, weird taxidermy art, stuff like that has always appealed to me.
Chainsaw manicure.
It was actually pretty easy to break into movies when I first started because I was at a young age. I actually looked a lot younger than I was. I was 18 when I started, and I looked probably 15, 16. So it was actually a pretty easy step for me to get into it. And they were doing a lot of the 80s horror films, and I fit right in at that time as being the victim. After Return of the Living Dead and Night of the Demons, all of a sudden, like People Magazine, Entertainment Tonight, all these, press people started coming to me, Premiere Magazine, and they started coining me, Queen of the Screams, which is like, I love it, I like that title, I want it. And so I embraced it, where a lot of the actresses back then, like nudity wasn't, you just didn't do nudity back then. I was doing some nudity. You didn't do like these B films that would hurt your career. And I just, like I said, embraced it instead of, just shrugged it off and said, oh, I'm doing one of those films. Well, it's blood, breasts, and they did say bimbos, but it's not bimbos anymore. It's more strong women. But you've got to have some blood and you've got to have some breasts, I think, to have a good horror film. I mean, I make the perfect scream queen. Let's see, it's shown at theaters. It's been shown at theaters. I've done like 100 films. I love horror. I think you have to love horror too. And you have to scream very well. This is if a crazy fan is coming after you.
There's a lot of really good horror bands out there, but I think the one that has the greatest influence over things would be White Zombie. They were one of the few that started off doing horror from the very start. I mean, even the name White Zombie comes from the movie White Zombie, which some people think is the first zombie movie ever made.
I joined White Zombie back in 1980, like late 85, 86. Joining a band before White Zombie was Shauna. It was a band called Life, and so that's how I met her. We did a few shows, band broke up. They got, she was going out with Rob Zombie, and they called me up right after they had the drummer Peter do a couple of songs. I jumped on board, and we started just immediately writing and recording and touring, and we just picked up right away. Rob had that band name before the band was even formed. So White Zombie already existed before the band was even in existence. He just said, I want a band to be called White Zombie one day. And then he put the band together with Shauna. Rob and I both had that background of horror movies. He brought that flavor into the band. And I was all about that because, I came from the horror stuff myself. And I was all into Iron Maiden with the Eddie monster thing. So I thought that was perfect, for something I wanted to do, Toxic Zombie, man, these guys are awesome. Brian Bennett worked with me on Metalopolis. That's when he first joined Toxic Zombie, and they did a Halloween show where they had me come up and play Thunderkiss with them. We hung out and talked about doing some songs here in the studio.
Come on, baby. Show me what you got. Come on, baby. You're looking hot.
If you were to describe what kind of music we play, okay, if you would imagine that, and you have to have a good imagination for this, imagine if Kiss, Motley Crue, and the Misfits had a gangbang with Joan Jett, Lita Ford, and Wendy O. Williams, we would be their bastard children.
Didn't actually start out as a zombie band, even though we were called Toxic Zombie at first. We actually started out more as just a regular like hard rock band with a little influence, and we had the Dancing Girls, of course, and stuff. But didn't actually start out as a zombie band until probably a couple months into our doing our first shows. We just kind of embraced it a little bit more, and I actually think Sam actually is the one who kind of embraced the concept a little bit more.
Yeah. I was the first one to put on the makeup, and I looked rather weird without everybody else putting the makeup on.
It's a very unconventional type of thing. There is a zombie culture, there's a horror culture, but they're in Portland, and I'm sure they're out there, but I'm not aware of them. There's not too many horror bands.
We've played a lot of gigs with, we've played with the Misfits, Wednesday 13, Gunfire 76 is also connected in. We opened up for Creature Feature, was one of our first bigger shows that we played with, which kind of led to all those other shows, Wednesday 13 and Misfits and whatnot. We also played a local event called Zombie Prom a few years ago, and having 600 people scream out, "We will eat your brains," with us was probably one of the best moments ever to have at a show, you know. And
especially when they're all dressed like zombies.
Yeah.
We've got a mass of zombies in front of us chanting, "We will eat your brains." Like,
Pretty
how
surreal.
could it be better?
Here at Zombie Prom 2011.
We are in fabulous Portland, where there is nothing but zombie awesomeness.
Tiki Terror is Zombie Prom 4. My inspiration for doing it really was there's not enough events downtown that were inexpensive, fun to go to. My idea for this was someone could roll around in the dirt, the mud, come in, you know, clothes from Goodwill, something like that, and come to a prom.
My name is Blake. This is... Who the hell are you?
Janelle. Nice to meet you.
Okay. I found her. She's a random zombie. We like her, though.
My impression is really fun. Just a group of people dressing up and going to a dance. I don't care for horror movies, but I'm here to have fun. So this seemed like a really fun thing to do, and I'm all dressed up.
This is my first big zombie event. The first I've actually gotten dressed up to show up outside of Halloween other than being cast for a play or a movie. Actually, I set the Guinness World Record for fastest straitjacket escape in 2007 when I was stationed over in Japan, and it works great as a costume. Everyone seems to recognize it wherever I go, so it's kind of been a staple for Halloween, any other type of dress-up event or anything for fancy dress.
We are foreign exchange students at this zombie prom.
This is our 4th year, and I was just looking for something different to do. So I always wondered if the vampires did exist, what would they do when everybody turned to zombies? What are they going to eat?
Maybe they would just come out and have some fun.
Yeah.
The first year, we didn't have a theme with it. It was just Zombie Prom 1. And we expected about 200 to 300 people and ended up with almost 700. So we weren't expecting that at all. So we had to move to a bigger venue, and we've been at the Bossa Nova ever since. The first one we had here was Enchantment Under the Dead Sea. And then we had Pretty in Pieces last year, and then this year's Tiki Terror.
My name's Audrey Angel. I'm one of the merch girls this year, selling my art up there. I do colored pencil work that's pretty photorealistic, but I do it of a fantasy nature, so I turn people into zombies or mermaids. You know, I've done lots of zombie events in the past. I did Zombie Prom here a couple years ago as a merch girl. I do the zombie walks every year. I had a random zombie wedding with a girl a few years back. I like making horror things. I don't like watching horror movies, but as soon as you're giving the project of making something explode or into a gory mess, I live for that.
There are little ones everywhere. We're one of the biggest in this side of the United States. There are a lot of individual parties, children's parties. I get asked all the time how to do a zombie kids party, things like that.
My name is Robin Webb, and this is Sophia. And I would consider myself a hardcore horror fan. It's not all I live and breathe, but I am a really big fan and like them a lot, which is weird because when I was little I was kind of scared of them.
I wasn't allowed to watch a lot of horror movies growing up. My parents took the R rating very seriously, so I was restricted from watching a lot of these films.
My family's really anything scary, horror, blood, it's, you know, the devil's work.
My mother-in-law, Joe's mom, she's not very supportive of us like letting her watch horror stuff. There's nothing that's gonna warp her, and like I said, there's nothing overly sexual or super gory, and not a lot of realistic violence.
My son's 11 and he's been watching horror movies since he was 4, and it's nothing there. I mean, I'm not concerned. He doesn't talk about it to a point where it scares me. He doesn't do anything that would scare me.
The first horror movie I ever saw was Ghost Ship, and I was 4.
I was just smiling the entire way through it. I just loved it.
The first movie I ever saw in the theater was Beauty and the Beast, the Disney. And I actually I was really young, and I was so frightened of the Beast on the big screen when he was all angry that I actually ran out of the theater and had to like stay out in the lobby and calm down.
What I know is every Disney movie has a really bad scary guy in it. And psychologists will tell you that kids gravitate toward that part of the movie because they get to practice handling their fear.
It was King Kong or Godzilla or whatever, and it was really funny because my mother would watch them with me for the first couple of years to make sure they didn't tweak me out for some reason.
My name is Sally Skelding. I'm an early childhood specialist, and throughout my career in early childhood, I've been very interested in the impact of violence on television and movies and how that influences the behavior of young children.
With Kiara, we watch like Addams Family movies and Army of Darkness because it's super campy. Nothing too gory, nothing sexual.
Being a parent, I have a 6-year-old daughter, so my horror community is veered back towards the Munsters and the Addams Family and Universal Monsters.
In the very early years, they do not think the way that we think. They do not construct a reality the way that we do. And a lot of people simply cannot accept that. They'll say, oh, well, my child understands this. I explained that to them. And the child will sit there and go, oh, yes, I know this is pretend. But they really don't. Because until they're about 8 or 9 years old, they do not even begin to think the way that we do.
Hey, so when we watch horror movies, you know it's not real, huh?
I know it's just fake.
Is it costumes? Sometimes they use puppets, right? Remember you were asking me about Army of Darkness? And if the skeletons were on strings, and I told you they were puppets, remember?
It's like Pee-wee's Playhouse.
She does understand that it's costumes and props.
A very young children, like a preschool child, will go to see one of these horrible movies. And they think this is real. Even though they've bought the ticket, they've gone in with their parents, everybody says this is pretend, what they see on the screen is real, because it resembles their reality.
My first exposure happened at age 6, and this was back in the 1970s when PG movies could get away with a lot more. So I saw full frontal naked Brooke Adams and Donald Sutherland smashing in the head of his alien doppelganger with a shovel and kind of going, what am I looking at? I felt like I'd been shown much more than I was supposed to see.
Children have to see it over and over and over and over again in order to try to make sense out of it. So they see it. It comes into their mind. They have to make an adaptation between what they've seen and their reality. If they're young, up to like 7 or 8 years of age, that can be almost impossible sometimes for them.
Just as long as you talk to your kids about it and you're like, it's not real, but you can't like really keep them from having nightmares. But I mean, you know, watching Poltergeist at 8 didn't hurt me.
Part of the problem is that in this age, we think a child is everyone, anything from 0 to 18. And so what we would allow our 18-year-old child to watch, then we go ahead and let our baby go to the movies with us, or we take our 3-year-old or our 4-year-old. We no longer make those very clear distinctions about what is appropriate for children who are in the early childhood years and early primary years, and what would be appropriate for an adult or for an older teenager.
As a mother, I don't have a problem with horror movies. We don't shy away from them right now with her around because she's too little to really notice. But I do have a stepson, and he is 7. He will not watch anything with blood in it. He's like, no, I won't watch that. It's scary, and if it's got blood in it, I won't watch it. And I mean, it's really like up to him.
You will find absolutely no child guidance book, no book on child development, no expert on early childhood that will say, oh yes, the thing you need to do is to fill your child's head with horror.
I think that horror movies themselves don't affect anybody. I think it's the person that decides how the movie is going to affect them. Because I do work with children, and there are children who do watch horror movies, and they come to school and they are perfectly behaved and they don't perseverate on the violence or the horror. And then I have other kids who come and that's all they do is perseverate on the violence and the horror.
Bottom line is the kids take everything off of the parents vibration about it. So if the parents think it's okay and it's just another movie, then the kids grow up thinking it's okay and it's just another movie.
I kind of grew up as a gentle creature in a somewhat hostile environment. And I do believe that horror films helped me process my environment.
I don't think anybody ever landed on a therapist's couch and said, I'm here because I watch horror films.
I just think that this horror stuff, if it goes in, it's going to come out, and we don't know how it's going to come out. And we do know from the research that it does indeed create some insensitivity to other people's feelings of fear or terror, or if we see people on the street that need help, we can't sympathize with them anymore. We don't have the empathy that apparently as a society that we used to have.
Even now, it's kind of like old hat. I look at him and go, yeah, okay, whatever. She's getting tortured. Yeah, okay. Chainsaw to the head. Yeah, okay, whatever. So I'm desensitized by it, but I love watching them and I love making them.
Horror is all around us at all times, whether you want to believe it or not. Just turn on the news. You know, people are being abducted and raped and killed and beheaded and dumped by the side of the road every single day. None of this is from the imagination of a horror film director.
Texas Chainsaw Manicure. I had seen the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It really freaked me out. So what I ended up doing was, my best thinking was, if I see it about a dozen times, it's going to become so familiar that it won't freak me out anymore. And really all that happened was it just drove that wedge deeper and deeper each time I saw the movie. And I penned about a 5-minute scenario about a woman who goes to a beauty parlor, gets her hair done, wants to get a manicure. Leatherface comes out with a chainsaw and gives her the manicure. And she comes out of the beauty parlor, and I'm her husband waiting in a pickup truck. And she comes out and she goes, "Look, honey, I got the best manicure ever." And I had a friend from high school who is now a screenwriter in Hollywood. And I showed him and his wife my 5-minute video of the Texas Chainsaw Manicure. And he said, you know, what a coincidence. My writing partner and I have an office right across the hall from Tobe Hooper, the director of the original Chainsaw Massacre. And Tobe was working on Poltergeist at the time. And he said, if you leave me a copy of the Manicure, I can maybe walk it into Tobe. And I said, well, that'd be cool. I mean, it'd be cool for him to watch it. So I did, and he did, and Tobe watched it. And Tobe loved the Manicure. And Tobe loved my performance in the Manicure. And Tobe called in his producing partner, Steven Spielberg, who also watched the Manicure and loved it. And 2 years later, that was 1984, 2 years later when they were casting Texas Chainsaw 2, I got the job based on my little cameo in the Texas Chainsaw Manicure. I never auditioned for it. I'd never met Tobe until I got to Austin, Texas, to get my head shaved and start, undergoing the transformation from me to Chop Top. And that really kind of was how I got my big start.
Some of them bug the shit out of you, yeah. But, it ranges from little kids to doctors and lawyers, I mean, the fans are a pretty eclectic group,
I've really been lucky. I've never had anybody at a horror convention bother me intensely.
With traveling around in different cities and meeting different people for these conventions, I've met all kinds of people. For the most part, the fans that I meet are relatively normal, appreciative people.
It was our first convention ever, and a fan comes in, and he was packed. Grindhouse had just come out a month before. So there was just a lot of people waiting to get signatures from us, and it was our first time, so we were just, overwhelmed. And this guy comes up,
and he says he's very excited, and he gives me a gun, and he's heavy, and he's like, I want you to just shoot anybody in the audience. And I was just like, oh, okay. I was like, oh, cool.
And so she points the gun, and he's like, you shoot it. And
I was like, wait a second,
and
this is real.
wait, no, this person goes, it doesn't have a red cap on it. And we're like,
red tip. And I was just like, wait a second. I was like, is this
a
real gun?
And
he was like, yeah,
it's loaded.
It's my gun. And I was like, it's loaded?
And then Jeff Fahey had heard all of it. And so he grabs the gun and he opens the gun and notices it has real bullets in it. And like in 2 seconds, security was around the guy and like had him down. And I had to explain to him that it was just all make believe, you know. He thought that we had killed people. He was like, oh, you don't shoot somebody like that. And she was gonna shoot the gun. She could have killed someone there. It was crazy.
It was a crazy story. Yeah.
But I've never had really any crazy ones. No one's ever, threatened us or anything, But there are some pretty eccentric. I mean, one guy will come over and he'll spend $400, and you'll sign some photos. Then he takes them and he folds them, sticks them in his pocket, and walks away.
There was somebody had spilled some stage blood on the name Otis on the floor plate, and I thought, oh, that's weird, And I went down and I had breakfast, and then I came up and I was in the other elevator, and the door opened and there was more blood on the other Otis floor plate. And it turned out it was a stalker that had done that intentionally. In fact, she called up the room. I remember, I think I was already asleep or something, and the phone rang, and this female voice said hello, and this female voice said, I'm your stalker. And I said, I'm sleeping now, stalk me tomorrow. And I hung up the phone, and that was it.
Mine were both female, and there was a kind of a psychosexual thing going on, but they both melted away into the darkness.
Some fans will stand here and spider webs will form on them. They stand there all day, and they're interviewing you all day. But normally we have a signal with security. We do that. It's time to get this. Ask them to go for a walk or something.
Last one I did, I lost my wallet, and I lost my bag on this stupid oh shit, I lost it again. It's like 1992, like lap sack thing. I carry on my crap. I left it somewhere. Both of them, in the middle of thousands of people, were brought back to the concierge and put it in the lost and found. No offense to LA, but shit, you left that stuff in LA, I'd been gone. I had my wallet in it, nobody even opened it, they just brought it back, and it was like I just came up, nobody had opened anything. It was just saying a lot about the kind of people they were like.
My name's Tanisha, and I'm doing the Monster Shoot Pinup Calendar, and I am the werewolf.
My name is Ren Murray. My company is Golden Era Pinups. Pinup is kind of our art that we do. Really a lot of recreation of classic pinup, whether it be classic Marilyn Monroe photography or Betty Page photography. Gil Elfgren is, a legend in the industry. Elfgren's paintings are, considered what we call today cheesecake pinup, which is the whole, cutesy kind of thing with the big oopsie face and the, skirt being blown up by the wind, or the dog's got a hold of the dress, or, this kind of crazy, almost unbelievable situations. The Monster Pinup Calendar was sort of a collaboration of ideas where, we kind of had this idea, they had the idea originally to do, monster pinups. There's a number of different ways that we could shoot it, a number of different looks that we could give the calendar. We sort of all agreed that we wanted to keep it more Elfgren painting inspired. Obviously there are liberties being taken with the way that they're dressed and their overall look. Elfgren didn't do a lot of Halloween themed or monster themed kind of stuff. There's a little bit of that in his work, but we sort of took that and ran with it. I had done like zombie pinups before. I've done a couple of zombie calendars, things like that, but they were always shot on location. It was very zombie specific. The freedom of this calendar allowed us to sort of go and try new things. When it was first proposed to me that we were going to have a werewolf in the calendar, I thought, okay, well, I know how to make zombies sexy. And I get that concept, you know, and a lot of these other things are going here. I get how we're going to make them sexy. I just could not imagine how we were going to take a beautiful girl, cover her in hair and tattered clothes, and make that sexy. But in the end, you know, with the way everything came together, she wasn't overly hairy, but it still translated, you know, in the look that it was definitely a werewolf. And just that whole composite background, we give it a nice creepy sort of background. But, you know, with her sort of knee up on the rock and she's doing this very provocative kind of a pose, you know, hottest werewolf I've ever seen, I have to say. The ghost shot was one that we had to use our heads up front while doing the actual shoot. You know, how are we going to create the illusion of her floating through the air, you know, actually being a ghost? We went ahead and decided to actually just have her standing doing her pose, and then I did separate shots of her from the knee down, just sitting on a stool with her feet sort of dangling out in a few different angles and whatnot. And then from there, it was just sort of making sure that those angles matched up with the way she was standing and everything, you know, looking as seamless as possible. With the demon shot, that's the one where the young lady's sitting on the chair and she's got the pumpkin and the knife. That's directly inspired by a Gil Elvin painting. The pose, the whole, you know, holding the pumpkin out and everything. My crowning jewel in that particular photo is having her face on that pumpkin, you know, creating the jack-o'-lantern with her own face. So for me, that was one of the things I was most proud of, and making it have that sort of inner glow with her own face on the jack-o'-lantern. This was a tough calendar for me to do because of, you know, kind of exploring new territory. They wanted me to put my style into it, but at the same time, I sort of wanted to make sure that the calendar was a little bit distinct from my normal, you know, kind of everyday pinup style. I think we were hugely successful in doing that. You know, the calendar's got sort of my signature style, but at the same time is at least a small departure from what I normally do. A lot of what I actually learned in doing this calendar has started to sort of filter its way into my daily work with my clients and models that I work with.
So there's a long history of hearses. They have motorcycle hearses. They started out with horse-drawn carriage hearses. It's a very, very long history.
Paired up with death, but they're a beautiful car. Each hearse is totally custom built.
Everybody likes to call it a hearse with a T. You know, pretty much 90% of the population tend to get that wrong, and it's just, you know, digs into the bottom of my soul. But I'm done correcting people on it. If they can't read my shirt, then that's all right.
Get a lot of funny looks from people, you know, especially driving through downtown Portland. You know, people look to see a hearse and a hearse and a hearse, and you can just watch heads turn, and people are always trying to figure out what's going on.
We are, as Coffin Cruisers, we're in our 9th year. There was another club prior to that, and just like any type of club, you're going to have differences of opinions, and that's kind of what happened. With the old club that morphed into the new club.
People start hearse clubs so you can be around people that have the same interest. There's lots of other car clubs, you know, say Corvette clubs, Mustang clubs.
So we've had a pretty good membership over the last several years of, you know, anywhere between 9 and 13, 14 people, and just like cars, they come and go. You know, they break down, they go away, and typically that's how we lose most of our members.
My dad, he wanted one ever since he was in the 3rd grade, and my mom wanted one since she was in high school, and they came to me and said, how would you feel about having a hearse? And I said, as long as it's white.
For me, it was the horror stuff. For some reason, ever since I was a little kid, I remember seeing like a hearse going by, and I was like, oh, that's sweet. What is that? It was a slow funeral procession with motorcycle police escorts, and it was just amazing to see all the traffic at a dead stop and let this nice long procession go.
Right there in your face with it, you know, got all that Detroit steel right there, and I wanted one, and I refused to drive a minivan. By all means, you know, soccer moms are out.
What makes a hearse different is they have a purpose, a very specific purpose, which is to take those that have passed to their final resting spot. You're talking about a 7,000 to 9,000 pound vehicle that holds 2 people and a dead person, and is typically about 20 to 22 feet long. They're hard to miss, so they're fun to drive.
When we have different car shows, things coming up, or different events through Halloween, a lot of people contact the website, and then I try to get in contact with them, see how many cars they want, if they want them to be all tricked out for Halloween type things or whatnot. When we actually did a wedding at the Lone Fir Cemetery, that they wanted the bride and the groom come up with the bridesmaids and groomsmen all in hearses. That turned out really well.
My hearse is a 1970 Cadillac Miller Meteor. I'm the 4th owner. It's been owned by 2 mortuaries. Its specific purpose, it appears to have been mostly a children's hearse. It's painted a very light color. It's beige, so that's a little unusual. It's usually a children's related hearse. And it shows a lot of evidence of having hauled a lot of small coffins.
Well, my mom's not too fond of the hearse. I run a foster home for medically fragile, disabled children, and I use my hearse as a wheelchair vehicle. She kind of cringes a little bit. We show up at Dornbecker's Children's Hospital, and I'm rolling out looking like this with my tattoos and pulling wheelchairs out of the back, and kids, I have a seat that rides in the back there as well, so it kind of freaks people out. And my daughter's doing this out the windows as we're driving down the road.
My friends and family love it. My dad helped me buy it, and he's an 80-year-old conservative Republican. So, but maybe my neighbors across the street that are trying to sell their house, they don't necessarily like it so much, but they're about the only ones.
I think you're probably a hearse fan first, if you own a hearse or you want to buy one, because just because you like horror stuff, and if you like horror things, you'll go buy horror effects. A hearse fan will buy a hearse first, and then probably have an interest in, the dark side of things or more of the macabre stuff.
I don't have all decked out with skeletons and things like that. I have it very classic with the white wall tires, and just want to keep it as professional looking as possible. So that's my goal. Just to have a collector's car that's a little more on the macabre side.
My cars all are custom. They got skeletons hanging from the ceiling in there. Big fat white walls, kind of in your face vehicles.
Doesn't like the Halloween props when we put the Halloween props in.
Especially Zilch.
Yeah, especially Zilch. What's that? Zilch is a little zombie baby that we put in the car.
He creeps me
He doesn't like to ride in the same seat with Zilch.
My name's Voltaire, and I have a little bit of trouble explaining exactly what it is that I do because I do a lot of different things. I started out as a stop-motion animator. I animated and directed some of the early MTV and Sci-Fi channel station IDs, all of the spookier ones, I like to think. And I got into making comic books, so I made some comic books, sci-fi, horror, usually with a touch of comedy. And then at some point in the 90s, I learned to play guitar, and I, on a dare, played a live show, which got me signed to a record label, and I've been a recording artist ever since.
The moon was full and the color of blood. The night the pirates came to the vampire club. The leader was tall and snide and slim. He looked like a gay Captain Morgan.
Everything I do tends to be macabre. So there's always sort of an appreciation or a love for monsters and the macabre. And there's also usually a sense of humor. I don't choose to put the macabre in my music. The macabre is just in my music because I'm macabre. And that may sound really, pretentious or corny, but it's just the truth. Everything around me I inevitably find some cynical or sarcastic way of looking at. I have been a fan of monsters since as far back as I can remember. My earliest memories were memories of, getting excited because King Kong versus Godzilla was going to be on the 4:30 movie. As a child, if it had a monster in it, that was all I needed. So King Kong is probably my favorite film, and as far as I'm concerned, it's a monster movie.
When
I was on tour a few years ago, and I was in Portland, Oregon, and I was in a record store. And I saw a gentleman signing a Bauhaus poster. And that gentleman was apparently the bass player, David J. And at some point, when I least expected it, the man came up to me and said, "Excuse me, is your name Voltaire?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Did you write a book called What is Goth?" And I said, "Yes." He goes, "I love that book. Would you autograph it for me?" And I was like, wow, the bass player of Bauhaus is asking me for my autograph. This is pretty epic.
To tightrope high society, pretty is a noose and a blade.
Yes, a founding father, if not the godfather of goth. It is said that I wrote the song Bela Lugosi's Dead, but actually I made a contribution to the song in that I wrote the lyrics and the bass line, and then Peter sang it as if he'd been singing it for years, and then we recorded the thing like the next week, so it was all very quick, and then it was made into a record very quickly, and it took off.
The bats have left the bell tower. The victims have been bled, red velvet lines, the black box.
Director, Mr. Scott, who saw a performance of ours on a TV show called Riverside, and we were doing Bela Lugosi's Dead, and he ran it by Bowie, and Bowie gave it the thumbs up. As far as my favourite type of horror film, it's usually psychological, actually, and the more subtle, and that the horror that's implied rather than shown, I think, is much more potent.
Unleash with no fear. People don't like it when we haul back. When you watch someone on stage and they're hauling back, then we're gonna haul back. We're not gonna go crazy. When you notice when the band is going crazy, the audience is going crazy, right?
We are the Demo Assembly Plant. We're a horror industrial band. The story goes back to the Sweetmeats Slaughterhouse. It was founded in the late 1800s by someone named Wilhelm Schroeder, who industrialized butchery with the machines. And after he was fed to the machines by the townspeople, the Sweetmeats Slaughterhouse remained empty until we came along.
Be who you are, 100%, kick ass, and then you're gonna be proud of yourself, because no one else is gonna give a shit except you in the end.
The whole theme is cannibalistic, murderous, slaughterhouse, kind of dirty South, more the abrasive, raw industrial sound. It's not clean, it's not perfect, but it's sincere.
So if you want to do a horror kind of thing, do a horror kind of thing, but do it 100%. Don't just do a little dibble dabble. Don't just get one monster. Get all the monsters. Make them as ugly as you can, like big teeth, with fire, saw blades.
Virtually every creative outlet I have, horror films have wormed their way into it.
Started working on independent feature films, did everything from being a blood guy to dealing with the body parts.
To which I'm really, really grateful, because it's made my work a lot better and more interesting than it used to be, I think.
To washing off the naked women when they were done doing their blood scenes.
I wrote a book called Shadow Play, Philosophy and Psychology of the Modern Horror Film, to explore aspects of the psyche that we're trying to leave behind as we reach for civilization. And horror films are a perfect fantasy arena to process all that stuff.
I started developing a distribution company to distribute my own movies. And then that was the creation of I Am Virgin and Stripperland, of writing and directing and co-producing horror movies with our own company to open the doors to bigger and better things.
I always love photography because I can't paint. Basically, I like to capture an image that looks like a movie still. When I was a child, I had horrific nightmares a lot, and I was just constantly terrified. kind of in my junior high years, I just started to just try and find the beauty in it and just watch horror movie after horror movie and just got into the makeup and just realized that it can be a very beautiful thing with such deep emotion, and just kind of went from there.
Horror Oregon, which is a website for news, reviews, and interviews, but really it's just me finding a reason to get online and try and collect up stuff. We will touch on national things if it's something that we find interesting or comes to us, but absolutely 100% specifically Portland and Oregon horror. If you really wear your passions outwardly and pursue them, there's a large swath of the what you would consider the average pedestrian, Oregonian, and Portlander that will follow you and will be enthused.
Scream is for horror lovers. If you are a fan of horror, you want to read our magazine. We cover classic horror from the early 1920s right up to the present day. Measuring up to Fangoria is obviously a huge deal for us. They have got a long history. Even just the name itself carries such a cachet.
What makes Movie Cynics unique is that, you know, we're kind of assholes. We tell it like it is, but we try and be constructive at least, especially when working with indie filmmakers. When it comes to Hollywood horror movies, we'll tear those things apart, especially if they're garbage, which a lot of them are.
I usually don't go into interviews unless I'm pretty convinced, A, that I'm going to get something that the readers are going to want, and B, it's kind of a personal thing where it's like, I want to be enriched. I've turned down interviews with major horror stars because I didn't feel like I could learn anything from them.
Since launching Mail Order Zombie, I've had an opportunity to attend like the Crypticon Horror Convention, Horror Hound Weekend in Indianapolis or Cincinnati, as a fan, but also then as a podcaster covering it for my podcast, and then sitting in on panels as well. And it's been a lot of fun being able to flash my Mail Order Zombie business card and say, hey, I'm with Mail Order Zombie, can I interview you? And then talk to people like Tom Savini, Ken Forey. You know, people that I looked up to growing up when I finally discovered horror movies full on, and be able to connect with them and just thank them for their work.
I always look at interviews like first dates. You know, where on a first date you're with someone, you're going, tell me about your job. That's kind of what we're doing. And as long as you are interested and listen, so often interviewers, I think, they're a slave to their notes. And they're so busy preparing for the next prepared question that they're missing all of this gold.
And they asked me, would I go and cover it and speak to people and get a feel for what horror conventions in the US are like. In the UK, they tend to be a lot lower key than this. We don't have the same kind of madness. We don't have the same people in costumes. So it's been a crazy experience for me to be here this weekend and just see the level of fandom and just how much the bar has been raised in America.
I geeked pretty hard recently with Kate Beckinsale, I'll say that. Just because she's Kate Beckinsale, come on. And she smelled amazing. I think I've got Elvira coming up, which is another one that you go, do you want to talk to Elvira? Fuck yeah, I want to talk to Elvira. But after a while you go, oh, I get it. There's this infrastructure in place. We're here to pimp your film. We're here to pimp your book. We're here to find some stuff about that the reason it brought you to the table.
9 times out of 10, I'm probably going to have way more fun with an independent horror film than a Hollywood horror film. The Hollywood horror film is catered to teenagers.
I don't care if you don't have a lot of money. Spend some time on your script developing your characters and make them somebody that, you know, I want to be invested with. I want to spend time with these guys for, 90 minutes, however long your movie's going to be.
It doesn't quite resonate with people that grew up in the 80s and early 90s and 70s watching just brutal horror movies that were entertaining, well done, and well put together, but not designed to get as many people into the theater seats as possible.
If your characters aren't somebody that I'm going to care about, I'm not going to care about your movie, man. I don't care how big your special effects are, how bloody your special effects are. Give me some characters that I care about.
So you'll find this current run of PG-13 horror films that are just disposable, uninteresting, cookie cutter, formulaic.
And don't take advantage of me. Don't treat me like an idiot. I've watched a lot of horror movies, man, and I have certain expectations to be treated as an equal here as a horror fan. If you're making a horror movie, I assume you like horror movies as well. So let's go on this journey together. Don't talk down to me, and don't give me something that you think I need to see because every horror movie has it. I like nudity, whatever. I like the special effects, whatever. But give me a solid story and give me characters that I care about.
You gotta have the violence. I mean, tension goes a long way, but in the end, you want that tension to lead up to some actual violence. You want to see the red stuff on the screen. I could probably count on my hand the amount of successful horror movies that had all that tension but didn't really have the violence. And within the last 20 years, you don't really see that very much.
I've always said that being a horror fan is kind of like panning for gold in a river of shit, because you go through a lot of crap.
Well, my name is Noel, and I love horror films because when I was about 3 years old, my family was watching Hellraiser 2 in the basement.
I really enjoyed the blood, guts, and gore aspect of it. The fact that it always made my mom scream whenever certain things happened, and I kind of got a sick little thrill out of that.
And I remember watching Hellraiser when I was far too young to be watching Hellraiser.
And I loved the hooks impaling the man's flesh towards the end.
I went downstairs and hid behind the couch and watched Hellraiser 2. Nobody noticed I was there until the movie was over. And at one point, I just matched them with something happened. I was like, oh shit! And then my family's like, well, okay, number 1, you're 3, don't swear. Number 2, you're 3 and it's like 11 o'clock at night. Why aren't you in bed? But I remember seeing Pinhead for the first time at 3. And instead of being afraid of him, I was like in awe of just this character. He was the first horror icon as Pinhead that I saw, and I fell in love with horror movies at 3 years old from his performance. And so I think if I ever got the chance to meet Doug Bradley, I would probably pass out. I was just that excited.
You mean like being told I'm the greatest actor who ever lived? Which I've been told. So take a back seat, James Mason, Marlon Brando, the rest of you. Numero uno. I mean, that's nuts. My name is Doug Bradley. I am best known, particularly at horror conventions, for having played Pinhead in the Hellraiser movies. I've also done a ton of other movies, TV work, stage work. I wrote a book even. I was a fan of horror movies as a teenager before I knew I was going to be an actor, let alone. And when I became an actor, I didn't have any particular ambition to work in the genre. So the two have come together quite happily. When I first started doing the conventions, I was slightly freaked out by Mom, Dad, and the kids coming to my table. And the parents would be saying, oh, he loves your movies. And I'm looking at him and he's like 7 years old. And I'm not really comfortable with that. But I now have so many people come to my table who are clearly entirely together and, rational, calm human beings who encountered these movies when they were 6, 7, 8-year-olds. The evidence of 20 years of coming to conventions is telling me that it doesn't really, okay, people will have nightmares for a couple of months, a couple of weeks, a few nights, whatever. But nobody seems to me to be permanently scarred or damaged.
Really excited. I got 2 VIP tickets to Crypticon for my birthday. I get to meet Doug Bradley, Pinhead, in all of the most important Hellraiser films. When I meet Doug Bradley, I'm pretty sure we'll have the most enormous nerdgasm in the history of ever. Gonna be nervous. I already am nervous to meet him. Honestly, don't know what I'm gonna do. It's one of those moments where, don't be a freak. Just do not be a freak. Walked around a little bit, saw some awesome movie posters. Then I turned a corner and there was Doug Bradley and freaked out. I had to walk away. I couldn't handle myself. So I turned the corner and there was Dee Wallace. And again, I had to keep walking. I'm still freaking out, honestly freaking out. And it's gonna be even more when I go back to actually meet Doug Bradley. It was awesome. I'm really proud that I didn't vomit because I thought that was going to happen. And I showed him my tattoo, and he translated it himself.
Quid existimet Deus. Wow.
He didn't ask what it meant. He's like, wait, do I look like someone who cares what God thinks? In Latin, that's amazing. I was like,
and I told him that I've been a fan since I was 3. And so we shared stories about things. Like, you remember watching it at 3? I was like, yeah. Why could I not? It was Hellraiser. My friend Bryn that does my tattoos can photocopy the signature and tattoo it on me when I get home. Because I'm definitely planning some kind of Hellraiser themed tattoo now. I have been for a while, but now it's official. It's gonna happen. My experience at Crypticon has been great so far. I'm gonna try and make it back next year. See who else is here. It's really fun. I had a lot of... I'm gonna have so many stories to tell. I didn't vomit!
Hold on one second, I'm going out of frame, but I'll be right back.
I still say it's the standard that CGI effects, though helpful, though cost-effective, will never replace good crafted animatronics and makeup effects.
Hello. So it was a 6-piece application. There was like one piece that was here, and then cheeks, including around the ears, neck, from the eyes up here, and then another piece over the back of the head. It did get simplified to a 2-piece application later. The nails preset in the latex, so as the pieces get glued onto my head, the nails go on. So when people ask me, did it hurt? Did you really have nails banged in your head? I say, yes, I did. I have very good healing flesh, and I'm sponsored by Tylenol.
I started modifying masks when I was little. I would take masks that I had around the house or that I got for really cheap and paint them and cut them up so they would fit my face better and try and hot glue them and random things like that.
I also just had a fascination with monsters as a young boy. Who wouldn't? It kind of led me to do mask making when I got older and get into some, special effects hobbies, I guess you could say. Nothing too professional, but a lot of fun.
I have the Wolfman and Frankenstein and Dracula. And on my back, I have Bride of Frankenstein.
My name is Dutch, and I'm a professional face and body artist. The piece I'm working on right now is going to be sort of a corset made out of human body parts all stitched together. It's a step-by-step process where you kind of layer things on and detail it out as you go. And then the finishing touches, it kind of all comes together and you get your finished product.
I started out as a makeup artist back in, I guess, about 1989, 1990 in Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. I started doing makeup for the film school that was there at the time. The very first Final Destination, I was the effects designer. And I've also done a slew of Sci-Fi Channel network, Creature of the Week type movies, many of those. And the last, say, 3 or 4 years, I've been teaching makeup effects as well as writing and directing my own feature films.
I'm just going for patches of skin, and eventually I'll paint the laces on there, do some other texturing with the skin and stuff like that, and it'll look really sharp when it's all done.
I think what makes New Image College of Fine Arts different than any other school in North America basically is the fact that we actually make feature films at the school that end up being distributed. So we specialize in horror movies, monster movies, and the acting department, the acting students get to act in the feature film, and the makeup department does the makeup. My favorite special effect that I've done would be working on David Cronenberg's Existence. I was in Toronto for about 6 months. Cronenberg is my filmmaking idol. I mean, being fellow Canadian, Cronenberg is God to me. So to work on that and have him coming around while I'm sculpting one of the little amphibious creatures, and he'd come by and say, "Oh, that's cool, I love what you're doing." I'm just like, "Oh, I'm in heaven,"
Our school is handing out a crap ton of money in scholarships, and so we sponsored this, and it was just a chance to kind of, see some of the talent south of the border and, find some people that might be interested, because a lot of people don't really know where to get started in this industry or how to get started. So, it's just education really is why we put this on, and it gives everybody else a chance that loves this sort of stuff to try their hand at it.
They typically give everybody an identical kit, and then they usually have some sort of mystery ingredient. So they want you to do different stuff. With this one, it was more theme-based. They wanted beauty as well as a beast. So it was the Beauty and the Beast was the theme. And I just wanted to personally deviate from the zombie stuff. I mean, everyone can slap blood on people and make them all gory and make a zombie, but I wanted to go a different direction. What I'm hoping to get from this, I want a little bit more in-depth knowledge about what I'm working with so that I can take my skill set to the next level.
I love Tom Savini. He will always be Sex Machine in my heart. I'm sorry, I've always wanted those pants.
I did stumble across a documentary called Scream Greats Volume 1 from Fangoria. It's about Tom Savini, and that became my entry into a lot of modern zombie effects, makeup effects, and things like that.
When people think horror, that's one of the main names that comes to people's minds.
I got so scared watching movies when I was a kid that I decided I wanted to scare people. I still have that. I still have to scare people. I scare my daughter at home, constantly. My grandson, who's 9 years old, It's a thrill. It's a thrill. It's the same thrill. I mean, why do you go to an amusement park and have somebody strap you into a machine and shoot you up into the sky? You pay for that, just like you pay to go see a horror movie. The movie A Man of a Thousand Faces. I saw that movie when I was 11 years old, and that was it. From that day on, I wanted to be the guy that creates the monsters. Before that, I thought they were real, they were real. And that magic is gone forever, once you get behind the camera, behind the scenes. That's the sad thing. That's the irony that most kids don't realize. They want to be involved in movies for the magic that they saw, but it kills the magic forever, as you know. Yeah. The only two movies that have scared me were The Exorcist and Alien. Because so many times you go to see a movie and you're thinking about camera angles and what the director's choices were making. You didn't have time in those movies. You were just getting too scared. Plus, I was raised a Catholic, and it hit a nerve.
I'm into tattoos, but yeah, I have a lot of friends who get like a whole series from a horror movie, like a full sleeve.
Halloween's my favorite holiday, so a lot of the tattoos are based on that. Like this whole sleeve is like Halloween based, but there's like a little kid right here, and he's got like dream clouds around him, so it's basically all supposed to be like a nightmare. On this arm, I've got like a couple Vincent Price portraits holding a portrait of me as a dead zombie with my brains out.
I like to refer to my look as horror punk. A lot of people call me goth. My tattoos, my favorite one being my Elvira. And then I have my interpretation of Gage in Church from Pet Sematary. And then this is just my own design of just a Halloween.
I think on my neck I'm gonna have two zombie hands eventually, like tearing my throat open.
People get horror tattoos because it's something that's easily relatable. They can relate to the monsters themselves, and it's great art. Depending on whether you're doing a realistic tattoo or not, it's pretty much, you take the portrait of the actual tattoo and you take a picture and you make a stencil from that and lay it on the person so it's directly the same thing. Unless you're doing a custom drawing of the tattoo, and then you're making a stencil from that.
The loyalty of horror fans is staggering.
Attracts a highly intelligent fan base who are willing to do the research where, drama fans aren't, or even action fans aren't. They're willing to, they're fiercely loyal.
Underestimate them at your peril.
People treat you differently because, you can kind of sense that you're like a die-hard horror fan, and then that scares them.
People like to be scared because, they know their lives aren't in danger when they're in a theater, when they're in a haunted house, they freak, but then they kind of laugh about it at the same time.
It reflects a whole lot of what happens to us in real life.
but it's also a huge bit of escapism.
It's more or less the mystery that scares me. If it's something that's gory and right in my face, I can already see it. I know what it is. I know what I'm dealing with. When I don't know what I'm dealing with.
The entire idea of horror itself is deeply based psychological. We all have a fight or flight response.
But I think it's almost therapeutic. I really do. I mean, I look at myself and think back, even in my youth, why did I watch horror? I think I had certain fears and inhibitions, and somehow on the screen it all played out for me.
I think the true horror for any of us is the fear we have within ourselves.
The blood and gut stuff, it's like that's nice, but it's not really so much what is frightening. What's frightening is not really understanding what's going on.
It became very tangible and doable, and I could watch it unfold, problems being solved, monsters being resolved, you know. I think it's very, very healthy, I really do.
And I like good versus evil, and that's what they're all about.